Hola. Welcome to episode 57 of Word to Your Mama. I'm your host, Ritzy P. I'm coming off, I just got my booster, and yesterday was not a good day, but I am here feeling a little bit better and just happy that I got the booster, guys. You know, try to take care of myself and most importantly, take care of my family and try to do whatever I can for the supernatural bear. This episode, we have the amazing Evonne Gallardo. She's Latinx and she works in the arts and culture management space. She was on a little bit over a year ago when I first started the podcast. It was episode 7. It was her and Colony Little, who is a Black arts writer. Also, she'll have a future solo episode coming up in the new year. But together, they joined forces to talk about the future of BIPOC, disabled, and LGBTQ plus artists. And I feel that there was a lot of talk about art in that time, equity and inclusion and all the diversity, equity and inclusion. But I didn't really hear the conversations coming from Black and BIPOC, Black and brown people. So I wanted to have them on, and it's a fantastic episode. I have a link to that. But in today's episode, I wanted to do a deep dive with Evonne because I feel like we're kindred spirits. From the moment I met her, I was like, how do we not know each other? We know a lot of the same people, but, getting into the nitty gritty, we probably were dancing and sweating next to each other at different events in the past. But in this episode, we talk about how she's holding up in part 2 of the pandemic, how we met during the CAA 2018 conference. We were invited to be on a panel called Projections on Future Practice. And also we got to meet Pepon Osorio, the amazing legendary artist. And we talk about that experience. And then we also talk about her recent presentation for the NALAC, National Latinx Arts Summit. It was called In Time of Healing, Ofrendas of Remembrance. She did that with Fe a Mujeres de Maíz and the amazing Dr. Amalia Mesa Baines. We also talk about how is her beautiful mug on the mural inside of Choi's best friend restaurant in Las Vegas, and so much more, especially like her non-linear career path, how she got into, the art space, and also her trajectory from LA to New York and then back to LA, and the importance of Latinx art in general. So yeah, let's get into this. I think you're going to listen to it. You're going to love her, and it'll be good timers. Let's get into it.
Cleansed from, and she had to stop doing it as often as she was. It's deep.
I bet.
It's deep. We're over here caught in the hamster wheel. Meanwhile, other people are astral projecting.
Just moving through dimensions and times.
I love it.
Evonne, thank you so much for being here. First and foremost, people need to understand that you've been here, but with Colony Little, you've been here before.
Oh, that was so fun. Yeah.
I'll have a link. That was when I first started, so thank you so much. It was episode 7, Colony Little, Evonne Gallardo, the future for BIPOC, disabled, and LGBTQ plus artists. And you guys went in, and it was amazing because I knew it. I was like, when I first started the podcast and I made my list, I was making my list of who I wanted to have on. And then I was like, wait, I want these two on. But wait, if I had them on together and we talk about, it was timely, everything, da-da-da. But then I was like, I want to have you guys on individually. So here you are. Muchísimas gracias.
Yeah,
and I want to start off by just saying, we got into dreams and stuff, but let's start off by, how are you doing in year 2 of the pandemic?
Oh my gosh. It has been a journey, but I am restored. I feel restored. I feel I feel like I've been through several battles, both externally and personally. And I've come out on the other end, and it's all gratitude. It's all gratitude. Like still raw, still a little raw, still a little, rough on the edges kind of thing, still kind of settling into this new start. But I definitely used last week's new moon to release a lot of stuff that I experienced, was part of, and struggled with over the past 2 years, like I'm sure many people have. So it feels good to be on the other side, my man.
Yes, that's what we love to hear. You look amazing. You sound amazing. I mean, this is good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, especially compared to where the world and where we were as a nation when we recorded the episode last year. I mean, it's different type of shit, but
it's a different kind of just general energy, which, I'm a HSP, a highly sensitive person. It's not something made up. My doctor, I learned about it. So when, there's energy that we carry, there's energy that we come into contact when we talk to another person or a group of people. And then there's the bigger, energy of this thing that whatever is happening out in the world. And, I really saw it move people in different ways. And I think one of the things that was so extraordinary about that time was we were, for the most part, we were all kind of in a same situation, like in our houses, in our, this really acutely focused time where we were all on the same page, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And that was a time, I think, where, that quote by Bob Marley, like total destruction's the only solution.
Mm-hmm.
That has always, from the first time I heard it in high school or junior high school to now, it still is such a profound statement, because I don't think he was like, oh, let's destroy the world and then start all over again. But it's like, let's destroy this, a piece of history that we have been struggling with around social justice issues, and let's think of something new. And I think that the past 2 years was also, I got excited, right? Even though we were limited, even though a lot of stuff sucked, and we lost dear ones and significant, portions of our community to the pandemic, there was also a feeling at the beginning that, oh, maybe we can change some stuff.
Yeah.
It felt good to feel that. On the other side of it now, I see a lot of stuff defaulting back to the way things were. It's, there's the human part where comfort is a seductive bitch. Pardon the euphemism. I use that gender wide. And comfort really drives our actions, and it's definitely been, I think, one of the henchmen of capitalism. Personally, these are my opinions, but so it's not unusual that we see stuff going back. But all that stuff, talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion being, I think, the one that exists between people and within workspaces and within communities, that's just out the door. We're back to speed. We're back to lack of awareness. We're back to, a lot of the bad habits that we picked up over the decades as they relate to ourselves and our labor production, right, for lack of a better term. But big movements don't happen linearly. They go forward, they take 2 steps back, they go forward, they take 4 steps back, and that's where we're at. So, it was a unique moment. It retrospectively, it's kind of amazing that we were part of that, right?
Yeah.
Like even
Yeah.
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. And time will tell where, where we're at. And you see a lot of people that were talking a big game that are now immediately, when it was possible, jump back on the hamster wheel. And then some people, kind of still have those lessons, kept those lessons, and are trying to change. So you're right. Baby steps, little steps, forward, backward, sideways, non-linear for sure.
For sure.
And then I wanted to mention that I was like, well, when did I meet Evonne? And I remember when I met you, it was in 2018. It was the CAA conference that our homegirl Alice, amazing artist, invited us to.
Shout out Alice.
Me, you, and Star Montana were there. I remember I was nervous as fuck.
The College Art Association panel.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was projections on future practice. And I remember I was freaking out. And I remember I talked to my homegirl, Lilium, and Elisa. And I remember we went out to eat. This was pre-pandemic, right? And we went out to eat. And I was like, yo, I got invited to this thing. And I was about to say no when she told me it was going to be in front of academics and in the space. And they were like, yo, academics, they bullshit the most. They're like, you're good. Don't even stress. And I was like, okay.
That's some good advice.
I was like, okay. And then I met you and I was like, how do we not know each other? You're amazing. We're kindred spirits. How do we not know each other? And so that's when I knew that, you were in NYC and stuff like that. So I want to kind of get a little background, because we did get a chance to do that last time. Where are you born and raised, and how did you end up in NYC, and Tell the folks.
Yeah, well, just that panel was so great to meet you in person, but I knew about you before because Shizu Saldamando gifted me with some of your products, those great dish towels that I'm now addicted to, right? With hip hop verses on them. And I bought them for gifts for other people. So I knew of you, but that was the first time we met. And certainly I had also known of Alice through my friend, photographer, art critic, art writer, Diana McClure, who's based in Brooklyn.
McClure, yeah, and I met her way back in the days, yeah.
Boom, see? I had a feeling I'd heard about you through her too. But I have to say, and of course, Star, right? I'd known Star before, who also was in New York at Parsons and then moved back home. But the highlight of that panel, girl of all, so I researched what other panels were happening at that time, and we were in stiff competition. We were. But who showed up to our panel, Mama?
Please.
Pepon Osorio showed up to our panel.
And he was
I was blown.
He was the honoree or whatever, that person that year for the conference. And
okay.
Yeah, and he came. He not only did he come, he came and he stayed. He asked us questions and then stayed afterwards. I was just like,
and he took pictures with us. I mean, we were standing. Pepon Osorio. Shout out to his brilliance, his mentorship, his just paving the way for extraordinary Latinx artists, and a MacArthur Fellow, I think also. Yes. I mean, it was awesome. But the story, as we're going back and looking at these intersections of relationships, I grew up between Pico Rivera and East Los. My both grandparents were from East Los and Boyle Heights. Nobody ever called it East Los and Boyle Heights. They called it East Los, East LA and whatever. Everyone's so colonizer energy with territorial, with no, that's not East LA, or no, that's not Boyle Heights. Anyway, when my parents grew up, it was just one big area and it was really diverse. But my grandparents still lived there, and I went to high school in Montebello, and a lot of my friends lived in East Los. So I was always on that bus on Whittier Boulevard that back and forth between my grandparents, my friends, my school, and then home. I was a callejera. Like I was always out in the streets, girl. But I knew at a very young age, I mean, with no disrespect, I just had an instinct that I needed more than this 5-mile radius, right? And I decided just to put in the work, not really knowing what I needed to do to go to college. I was a first-gen college student, and my parents couldn't help me with applications. Like there was no sense, right, of what this took to make it happen. So, comunidad, right? I leaned on the kindness of my fellow, some of my friends' parents who had kids who had went to school and could help me. So the power of comunidad definitely catapulted me into this college experience. Girl, I just knew I wanted to go to New York. Like, that's it. Like, I wanted to live in New York. And honestly, college was just the means to do that. So I literally was like, what colleges are in New York? Okay, NYU, Columbia. I think I applied to St. John's, right, out in Long Island. And then I applied to some California schools. But I had no idea what an Ivy League school was, outside of hearing it on television, like Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, right? That's what I heard. So I applied to those schools, and girl, I got accepted to all of those schools. Now, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just magic. I mean, I went to a really crappy school. I had to go to junior colleges to take courses that I knew would help my academic portfolio, but that my school did not offer. That's how crappy it was. And it was really sexist, right? Because the boys' school had all of those classes, but the girls' school, all girls' school did not, right? So anyway, went to New York, went to Columbia. Of course, my dad was like, why can't you go to USC? And I showed him the financial aid papers of both schools. And he was like, okay, you want to pay this, Daddy, or you want to pay this? Okay. But it was funny because my parents were really like deer in the headlights with all of it, as was I. Right. I was super naive. I had no idea. I didn't know anyone in New York. I had never visited New York. Literally the last week in August, I showed up in a cab on 116th and Broadway with my suitcase. So, but all of that, I want to point out that there was someone at Columbia, a Chicano from East Los who I did not know, who worked in the admissions office as a work study. And part of his job was to go through the applications of new students. Girl, he advocated for me. See. I mean, we're talking about kids who went to prep school, like Exeter, Phillips. I mean, these are elite schools. They had way more, right? He really advocated for me to go. And so it's not just like what I did. It's what community did. Yeah. It's what someone I didn't even know did. Wow. It's powerful, amazing. Right? That's the magic. That's the magic. Like, yes.
Looking out.
So I went to Columbia. It was really rough. I was not like academically, I was really behind. I had to take remedial courses, which put me even farther behind than my fellow students. But then it was those remedial courses where I met all the cool folks, right? All the athletes were in the remedial course. It was hella fun. And the professors were younger. And so they were having us read all the books that we would never, not all, but a lot of the books we would never read as part of the curriculum, which were a bunch of dead white males, right? That's where I read James Baldwin. That's where I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. That's where it's like the
it all happened the way it was supposed to happen.
Incredible. And it really set me on a course to continue that learning outside of the curriculum that I was required to do. And I just was a voracious reader for all things Black and Brown, socio-political, social justice, authors, thinkers, philosophers. And so I owe it to, not being prepared. But thankfully I graduated 4 years.
What did you major in? What was your degree in?
American history. And literally, it's not like I went and being like, I want to do American history. Ivy Leagues have really general, broad majors. Like they're not like, UCLA has really specific undergraduate majors you can choose from. Basically, at the time I had to choose my major, I looked at the classes I had taken and I was like, I guess I like history. All right. I had no idea what I wanted to do with that. But my first year is where I met Diana McClure. That's my sister from another mister and her whole family. Remember, I don't have anyone on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Her whole family took me in. Like that was my surrogate family for 12 years.
Wow.
I went to Thanksgiving every year in Sharon, Massachusetts, where their family, right, where they gathered. So it was like, that was divine intervention too, just meeting this person that I remain in touch with. And I'm so, so glad that we sustained that relationship despite the distance. So I majored in American history. I graduated. I didn't know what I was going to do, girl. By the way, the club scene between 1989
you were in it.
I mean, it was basically, I did whatever I needed to do in school to be able to keep doing my thing in the city. That's what my focus was. This was still at, the hip hop industry had not yet become a business. It was still an art form. And it was such a sacred space whenever I had the opportunity to witness performances or just to be in a club listening to whatever music, right, was out there. And then, in the 80s, like there was no like, here are the gay clubs, here are the straight clubs. We were all in it together, right? Yeah. Like we were experiencing each other's aesthetics, expressions, language, like all in these spaces. So it was just, gosh, it was just so lucky to have been through that in that time. So I graduated college and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I got a hookup at the New York City Board of Education, writing press releases for the then chancellor because they were going through an asbestos crisis. After that, they placed me in some admin position. And I was like, oh no, honey, I cannot work for a bureaucracy. No, this is what I do. I don't know what I still want to do, but I know it's not here. And really it was because I needed to feel the impact of my work quicker. Like, a bureaucracy, like you just work and maybe some things change down the road. So I knew that wasn't for me. And I was really broke after quitting that job and was about to come back to LA because I was like, asked out. And then my friend, the other important person I met my first year in New York was Franklin Sermon. Shout out to Franklin, who's the director of the Perez Art Museum, Miami.
Do you want to support original content that supports diverse voices? Why not support Word to Your Mama? You're listening to it right now. Become a patron. Head over to patreon.com/WTYM. There are 4 patron levels to choose from, including Good Looking Out, I'm Down, Hell Yeah, and Please Believe It. Benefits include patron shoutouts, exclusive patron-only content, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/WTYM to take your support to the next level. Gracias.
Who just, I'm sure is coming down from Art Basel right now.
Right? Yeah.
But he had reached out, we were friends, like we would hang out, we would go to the clubs, like he was at Wesleyan, I was at Columbia. I met him through Diana and her family. And he called me up out of the blue. Yo, E, you need a job? He didn't even know what I was like, where I was at. Like I had not caught him up in a while. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And he's like, they're hiring at the museum I'm working at. I'm like, cool, what is it? He was like, I think it's like the fundraising department. I was like, all right, whatever. Like, he's like, it pays $25 an hour. I was like, cool, I'm there. So I literally got hired to handwrite 2,500 invitations to their gala, to this museum's gala. And I can't believe I did that because my handwriting sucks now, but I guess it was good back then. But then I just, they loved me, I guess. They hired me onto that department. And development or fundraising, the great thing about it is you have to learn everything about the museum and what it does from the rooter to the tutor. So 8 years of learning, not just how a museum works and all that goes into it, but also learning the skill and craft of creating a value and or fundraising, right? So it was a great learning experience. When I started, Michael Govan, who's the director at LACMA now, he also started there as director. And it was a small group of staff members, but we just gelled like really well. I didn't ever feel overmanaged. Michael was a great visionary as he is now. It was a wonderful first kind of work experience for me that I don't take for granted because I have never experienced it again. So 8 years of that. And then I was like, I'm tired of learning about German conceptual artists and American white minimalist artists. Like, I want to go learn my people's art. Like, I want to do more with what I know about what exists in my community as it relates to artists, art, culture. And so I went back to school 8 years later to the new school, got a master's degree in the sociology of art, because as much as I love art, I love artists more. So I wanted to understand how artists were in relationship during and through the Chicano art movement. And, what I found was no different from what we usually experience, right? There's gender stuff. There was LGBTQ stuff that, the dominant culture was in tension with all of those things. But we managed to continue to express, the artists continue to express themselves in ways that were really diverse, extraordinary, and sometimes reflective of the community. Not always, but sometimes. So it was great to have that opportunity to go back to school, because unlike the first time, I was really focused. Girl, I was working full time, going to graduate school full time. I was bartending at night at this great jazz club in Brooklyn around the corner from where I lived called Night of the Cookers. It's not there anymore. And I was like hula dancing, like taking classes, right? Hula and Tahitian classes. So it was, I see those 2 years, like between 98 and 2000, I was a robot. I was just like production, learning, but always having fun, right? New York is the city of you work hard, you play hard. There's just an electricity to that city that I think when you're in your early stages of your career really helps to catapult, because everyone's there, driving themselves to learn, to do, to make a mark. And I'm just really thankful that I was there during that time. And then in my my waitress scene at this, this bar club, I mean, it was the spot. Like Common and Erykah Badu were dating at that time. Like they would come in and like get a chicken Caesar salad. Like the artists, the jazz groups that would perform there, like the trios, were extraordinary. One of the mainly featured tenor saxophonist, Teodros Avery, is here in LA now. I mean, it's wild, right?
Crazy.
Like how people, I mean, so many people who lived in Brooklyn, in Fort Greene, shout out to all those folks who lived in Brooklyn and Fort Greene in the 90s. Because it was almost like a club. Like it was, you find people all over the world and we're like, oh, you are my neighbor. But I was talking to folks while waitressing at this place, artists, and they were like, yeah, I'm moving to LA. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, there's more space. It's cheaper. More space in terms of like where they could do their art, their work. And I kept hearing this and I'm like, well, damn, if artists are moving now to LA, maybe I should go, why not? So I decided to move back to LA 6 months before 9/11 happened. That was weird. Yeah. And then I landed back here in LA and it was perfect timing. I had just finished this master's thesis on the Chicano art movement, its artists and how they all, related to each other. So I wanted to, it was perfect timing for me to kind of be rooted in all of these things that I had researched and were part of my past, but very distantly, right?
Yeah.
So it was a convergence. I think that was really beneficial for me. That LA of 2000 is no longer.
Tell me about it.
It was still ungentrified to a certain extent. Yeah. Downtown was occupied by artists and incredible parties and remember Firecracker? I don't know if did you go to Firecracker?
Yeah.
Girl, that was
I went to those after hours. What were they called? Mama. What was it called? Something Mama, slap your mama, something mama.
Oh, I don't know if I ever. Maybe I did.
You probably did, but probably didn't know the name because they changed. They were like in warehouses in different parts of downtown. It was after hours. Yes. Smack your mama. I forgot. Someone's going to listen to me like yelling at it right now. But it was a time. Like it was an amazing time. I had just moved by myself because I graduated from Long Beach to LA. And that's when I was an intern at the Wake Up Show. I was living by myself in K-Town in a slumlord place. And it was like, I was out and about by myself at these places. And I was like, this is amazing. And that's like you were a part of New York at an amazing time. And then you moved to LA and LA hip hop was like the shit and everything happening. I mean, yeah, you got to experience them both.
I thank you for reminding me of that because I really do appreciate those memories and those experiences. The LA creative scene between 2000 and 2006, I would say, that was just it was popping. I mean, there was that real wherever the creatives were, that's where you wanted to be in LA. It was popping. You did not have the New York influence yet, like you do now in LA.
Yeah.
And it was very rooted in people who had been, in Los Angeles for generations, right? So there was a depth to what was discussed, what was created, what was expressed. And I mean, that's where I met Azul.
Azul, yeah, the
right?
connector.
Azul, right?
Yes.
Azul and anyway, that whole crew, right? Yeah. And Azul's like programming brand performances now and doing his damn thing and knocking it out the park. But all of those, that whole crew and of course the visual artists, right? So I had a really wonderful bowl of LA that still benefits me today, and with people I met back then that I'm still in contact with today, the beautiful LA that was and is. I still have hope for it.
It's good to see people
I don't know
like
anybody here anymore.
Right, same. But it's good to see people like, Azul, and then, thanks again for the amazing question that you had for Garth. That episode is out now. And it's just like to see the evolution of all these people, of all of us, right? Like what we've been, what we've done, where we're doing. It's just like seeing the creative people move, around and still are in it somehow.
Thank God for Chocolate City. Shout out Garth Trinidad and KCRW, because when I came, that's what I was, when I first moved back to LA, that's what I was listening to. So, talk about a DJ saved my life.
Please believe it. Please believe it.
But yeah, it was definitely very fruitful, I think, for a lot of people creatively during that time.
Yeah, and to be the age, I feel like we're maybe in the same age bracket. I feel like I might be older, but like during being that age when the city was bubbling, you know what I'm saying? I got to experience a little bit of New York just by going out during that time. How did you, because I got offered a job during that time at a record label, and then I went out for I went out for a music conference, and it wasn't even winter. It was October, and I was freezing my face off. Yeah. And I was like, no. And so how did you deal with the cold, the extreme weathers being Angelino?
Yeah, so I loved it. So I don't know if you know this about me, because I post about it and complain about it all the time. I hate heat. If the temperature is above 75 degrees, I'm not happy. So unlike most people who go from LA to New York and experience 30 degree below weather or even colder, and then like, this is not for me, I'm out. I was like,
thriving.
It's just something else I have to work around just so that I can stay living in New York. but also it didn't hit me, right? I do well in the cold. I don't know what that is, but I do well in cold temperatures. But I'll tell you a funny story. I was in school. We were in a 12-story dorm building, and it was October or maybe even late September, because unlike LA, y'all, once Labor Day hits, literally the temperature drops the next day. There is no fuzzy area.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I woke up one morning, I looked out the window, it was hella sunny. I put on shorts and I had a De La Soul neon glow in the dark t-shirt that I had gotten from the concert 2 years prior that I went to at Universal City when they were performing with LL Cool J, Slick Rick, I forget who else. But anyway, so I had that t-shirt on and I went outside and I was like, oh my God. What the hell? And the wind blows through the city, right? Yeah. And it just hits the chest and you're like, whoa. So that was hella funny. Like, I'm sure people were laughing at me, seeing me go down in the elevator with shorts and a De La t-shirt. So yeah, no, I loved it. Like, I loved understanding, like, you can't buy polyester down. You got to buy the real down feather down, or else you're going to freeze your butt off. You can't just buy regular socks. You got to buy wool socks. You can't just buy regular tights. You got to buy wool tights. Like, all these things you learn. And then when your small little apartment, right, you got to function your wardrobe where, okay, I got to put away the winter clothes, bring out the summer clothes. Okay, the fall clothes. It was a thing, but I loved it. I adapted. It was not a problem at all for me.
Nice. No wonder. I've had friends that moved out there during that time to start big shit that is now big shit. And they were like in tears.
Yeah.
They were just like, I'm in layers. Like, what is happening? Like, and I was like, I think because of that and experiencing, I was freezing my face off, and my New York friends were like, this ain't shit. And they're like, we're just in October. And I was like, okay. There's my
And
decision.
I mean, because once you get into February, whew, mama. And the museum I worked at is still on 23rd between 10th and 11th. No, between 11th and 12th, right on the Hudson. Right. So I lived like when I would go to work, like I was running between 11th and 12th Ave, like in all my like winter clothes with the wind just like
No, man.
that was, yeah, I loved working in Chelsea at that time because it was still it was still ratchet. Like there were still sex workers, you know, on 12th, there were still needles, condoms, like all up and down in that area. But I really liked that, right? Like I didn't understand gentrification and how art washing happens and that was what was going on there. But it felt right. It felt like the New York that I had always dreamed about in its extraordinary creativeness, energy, and dirtiness, like all of that together.
That combo, right? That combo, you can't, it's a special, New York is a special place. That's amazing that you're able to tolerate the weather, that you thrived in it, and that, you know, you went not knowing a single soul, and, you know, these special people were put in place for you. Homeboy at the admissions, you know, Diana. And I'm going to have to think about how I met her here.
You probably know her through Alice because she's cool with Alice.
No, I met Diana a long time ago. Alice was like newer.
Diana lived in LA between 2002 and 2006.
That's when I met her, in that window for sure.
But
so I don't remember how, because I met Alice like more recently, like not more recently, but like later after that. No, I can't remember how. So okay,
we get around, so it could be anywhere.
Right, it could be anywhere. And we've been in the same places. If you were in LA at that time, we've been in the same with us. We've been in the same places,
I'm
sure. The same people. We were probably dancing, sweating next to each other. Like it was a must. It had to have been.
Exactly. I was probably chasing some like unrequited love in the corner of the club, in the corner of Grand Star Lounge, per usual. No, I was definitely up by the DJ booth. I remember that. Like I was I remember Azul and Eric Coleman and right, the photography crew also that were part, because Diana was a photographer.
Oh, we were in a exhibit together. I think that's how we met. We were in an exhibit together.
Oh, with Man One? Was it Man
I
One?
think so. I think I think we're in a book together, maybe. I think we might be in a book together. I'll look it up. I'll see.
Please look it up. I'd love to see that. Shout out to Man One. I just saw him a couple of weeks ago or last month at a talk about public art at Art Space, I think, downtown. So loved seeing him and hearing about him thriving.
I owe so much to that man. Okay, so I wanted to touch upon something that I witnessed. Maybe it's a couple of months now. It was the NALAC, National Latinx Summit.
Yes.
And you and Fe from Mujeres de Maíz and Dr. Amalia Mesa Baines did this amazing presentation, I would say, in time of healing, ofrendas of remembrance.
Yeah.
Dude, first and foremost, it was my first time. I was like, I get to attend this for free, virtually. And I went to all these panels and I was just like, yo, this is like what I need. And I told you, I think I texted you and I was like, yo, this is what my soul needed. I was in a place of, been in a place of this creative, like pause. I had no bandwidth. And that was so inspiring on so many fucking levels, right? And especially because, you know, I live in LA and I'm from San Diego. So SoCal, right? I, you know, spent, you know, my you know, bonus family, they're from the Bay, you know, so I know kind of like those histories, right? And New York history is different. But as far as like Mexican history in other places. I saw someone talk about the history on speaking on that, but in Chicago, right? And I was like, yes, this is the kind of information that I need. And your presentation with those amazing women, it was like, what? It was timely. It was eye-opening and inspiring. And I just wanted to talk more about a little bit and say, how did that come about? And yeah, I mean, you know, from the presentation, you were talking with Dr. Amalia Mesa Baines and saying how you guys met and stuff. And I was like, and beyond 100, I wasn't knowing of her. I wasn't knowing. And then as she's talking, I was researching and I was like, yo, her work is amazing.
She's a chingona. Like, yes, like all the chills and feels for Dr. Amalia Mesa Baines. I love what you said about the space, right? Like being in this, even if, imagine if this was in person.
Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget
about it. But every person who comes into contact, who I know and have taught and have been in community with through the National Association of Latino Arts and Cultures, NALAC, has said that same thing. This is what I needed. I had no idea what this meant. The ability to come together in community with other Latinx artists, arts administrators, leaders, multi-generational, to learn the language, right? That we may already have, we may not already have, but to be speaking the same language, for lack of a better word, to have the same values, to, LA. I think somebody was tweeting out there, you can only hate LA if you love it.
Right, totally.
And I'm like, yeah, that's me, right?
That's
like
me.
Sometimes LA can get tiring because we're always critiquing.
Yeah.
Right.
Always.
We're always critiquing, and we're always in this space of generational trauma at the hands of multiple systems here. And not that these other people from other places aren't also, but I think when we come together, there's a suspension of that.
Yeah.
It's really all of that is suspending. We're in the space together of magic. And I cannot talk enough about NALAC, but please check them out. And NALAC.org.
For sure.
Transformative. The other place that was transformative for me was self-help graphics and art, right? In East Los, now in Boyle Heights, 50-year-old Chicano Art Center, Latinx Art Center. They're both as participant and then later as executive director. That's where I learned about these rituals that my grandmother and parents used to do, sort of, kind of, but I never knew what they were. And then it was there that I learned about Dia de los Muertos from culture bearers, from artists who started it back in 1970. I mean, that's wild, right?
Yeah.
And so it was there also that I learned about these incredible Chicano Latinx artists like Dr. Amalia Mesa Baines and educators, right? But I met Amalia at her opening, at the exhibition opening of Neo Hoodoo at the Menil Art Collection in Houston through my friend Franklin Sermons. Hello.
Right?
So she had an installation, this gorgeous installation of an altar. But one of the things that I always remember was as you approach the ofrenda, she had lavender all on the floor. And so it wasn't just a visual experience, it was this sensorial experience across the board of memory, of scent, of antepasados of these beautiful arrangements, right? Her installations that are also spiritual, that are also ofrendas. So, I was already like bowing at the altar. But we found each other again on Instagram during the pandemic. And we were DMing with each other through the whole lockdown. And we were talking about grief, right? I had been posting about grief. I'd been posting about the losses, the injustices, all of that. And she was like, I think we need to do something collectively for our comunidad to process all of this stuff. And I was like, I'm down. Like, whatever we come up with, I'm down. So it just so happened that as we were developing the idea, the opportunity, so thankful to the staff at NALAC, the opportunity to sort of launch this project was an intersection with the Latinx Summit. And so we were able to put together a presentation, but do it in a way that was really respectful, but we were in ceremony as a community, as a national community. We were in ceremony. And so we really wanted to honor that. And, we brought in Feb because all three of us, there are many ways to practice Dia de los Muertos, to practice ancestral prayer and remembrance and adoration. But, all three of us, we come from the Chicano tradition, right? Which we shared with everybody there, is grounded in two principles: resistance and affirmation. And so I wanted someone who had always been a part of the community, who we always had at Self-Help Graphics and Art, part of Dia de los Muertos and that honoring and celebration. And so we invited Fe to do that. And it was just so on point. And it was also important for us to share that there are many expressions. The one we did was just one. And to really uplift the diversity that exists within this thing we call Latinidad. And then, just to have this multi-generational group of women too, together in service, and in learning and in storytelling. I mean, we just need to do that more. Like, we need more of that, and more stories, more expressions, more uplifting of the many, many stories that have yet to be known. So I had chills through the whole thing. I had chills through the whole thing. It was great to be able to share that. And it's still up. We have ofrendas de remembrance. We have the Kudo board where if you wanted to share an ofrenda, a digital ofrenda of someone that you love who's no longer with us, whether it was because of COVID or for whatever reason, you can still go to NALAC's website and search for ofrendas of remembrance, and the link is there.
I'll add it to the show notes for everyone.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, it's not just meant for Dia de los Muertos. It's really up for collective healing.
Have your kids been in a house playing video games in your space way too long? Now you can get them outdoors and still be social while social distancing at the skate side after school and group skateboarding classes. Skate students get to improve their skating and decompress after a long day or week of school. This program is awesome for beginners to get started or advanced skaters to take their skills to the next level. Go to theskateside.com and learn about our COVID-safe programs in Santa Monica, Culver City, Glendale, and South Pasadena. That's theskateside.com. The Skate Side. More kids skating.
That's amazing. Thank you again for putting that together and having those conversations and being in contact during these times where you're just talking and having these conversations where things like this can come out of it, where you formed community, you helped the community. And it was just like, I was texting my homegirl, Candy, shout out to Candy. And I was like, yo, you got to get on this shit right now. And I was like, this is amazing. Da-da-da. And she was inspired as well. And every year she does a big altar at Spark at LA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she does that. And so, it inspired her to take it to the next level and what she was doing at her kid's school and presentation. And then she shared her presentation that they were going to do for the school. And then I learned a lot. I've been fortunate enough to experience Dia de los Muertos in Oaxaca,
wow.
And I was by myself. It was my solo trip. It was a whole thing. I was taking Spanish classes, cooking classes from this abuelita, stayed with a familia, had an intercambio.
Awesome.
It was amazing.
Oh my God.
It was one for the books, and it started, I was there for 2 weeks, but I did all the stuff, the comparsas and everything like that. So I got to experience, Mexican, like a Mexican Dia de los Muertos Oaxaca way, right? And then with her presentation, I saw that the ones, I forgot what area, what country, and they do it where they do the kites.
Yes, that's in I think it's Guatemala. I think El Salvador too. But I think it's Guatemala, if I'm not mistaken.
Just these amazing, celebration of Dia de los Muertos, but the traditions that they do. And I was just like, this is gorgeous and beautiful. We need to know more of this. We need to learn how it's celebrated in all the different ways, because
all the different ways.
Like you said, and what's important, you were expressing at your presentation, like, yo, this is one way of doing it. This ain't the only way. This is one way. And to just remind us, like, we're not a monolith, guys. Within, there's so many different ways.
I mean, within Mexico, where it supposedly started, although they were doing it in other parts of, indigenous communities throughout Latin America. So we don't have dates, right? But Mexico is the dominant player there. But so we always read stuff about it. But even within Mexico, there's a variety of different expressions. What happens in Oaxaca doesn't happen within DF, right? Like what happens in Veracruz isn't happening in Sinaloa. Like it's all different.
It's all different, dude. Yeah. And so I love that. And we need more of that. And I love, starting to be part of more of these communities, right? Where I think I've mentioned before, I look to whatever I'm doing, I want to be part of those communities of people that kind of look like me. But when I look for them, they might look like me, but they're not like me. They're really, do you know what I'm saying? They're like, maybe have a Latinx surname, but we're just whiting it up. We're just like adding a little bit of color. And I don't like that, and
right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I don't need that. That's not me. I can't relate to that. I don't want to be the white version of me, like a white version of a Mexican girl. No, like I want to do my shit, the things that I'm into. Anyways, being an artist and being a woman and certain things that you and I are into, it's hard to find that community, right? But being in this space was, like I said, it was magical. So thank you to you. Thank you to the organization. You guys everyone does amazing stuff. How are you doing on time? Because I have a couple more sections. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one question I forgot to ask on episode 7, when you and Colony were on, is how are you on Roy Choi's best friend's wall?
Get around. Just kidding. First of all, he doesn't know this, but I have shared with my friend who is friends with him that no disrespect to his wife, who I do not know, but I still crush on him. I mean, his show, like what he does, how he does it, he is definitely my celebrity crush. So thanks, Roy Choi. But the way my floating head got on the wall of best friend in Las Vegas is through my friend Fang Wen, who's an artist. And she was commissioned by Roy Choi and his team to do a mural that celebrated the culture and diversity of LA and LA creatives. So every person, every floating head is a friend of Fung's and or is a creative, someone she's been inspired by. And so it was such an honor, an honor. Dope. I mean, she my girl, but still, it was such an honor when she told me, you're going to be in this mural. And it was so good. It's like, oh my God, this is like incredible. I still have not, I am shamefully admitting that I still have not gone.
Us either. And I'm bummed. But the pandemic put a pause on that shit.
For sure. But it's always something funny when it first opened and all the press was coming out and I see my head in the background. But this is all due to the incredible talent, mind, and person that is Fang Wen. And she is, talk about can't stop, won't stop. She's like projects, public art projects, exhibitions. She teaches. She got 2 little boys, and single mom, and I mean, she's the inspiration.
Yeah,
she's the inspiration, and so she did that with Roy Choi and his team for that opening, for that location.
Because it's you. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's not like, it kind of resembles her. It is you. It's your
Baby,
head.
I got the bun. I got the glasses. I got the gold, right? The hoops on. I'm representing for sure. Thank you, Fung.
You. Amazing work. And I can't wait till, you get the chance to go. And hopefully when you're there, Roy's there as well. I need to see all the pictures, all the stuff. I'm excited to experience that too, to go there too. Okay.
Fair warning, Roy. I'm going to be standing for a little while. It might be awkward, definitely for the first couple of minutes, but then, it'll be all love.
Amazing. He agreed. I just haven't had him on, but he agreed to be on.
That's so. All right, you're getting called in. We are calling you in, Roy. You need to get your PR person to schedule you to have this convo with Ritzy. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to questions and comments from the audience. Okay. This is an easy one here. Maybe. What are you reading right now? This is from Colony Little. She was on your episode. Art writer extraordinaire from LA, now in North Cackalack. What are you reading?
Oh, North Carolina. That's right. I was like, is she in North Cali? See how I'm so West Coast, a little leaning in the West Coast. What am I reading right now? Oh my gosh. I read all the time for research, but I guess in terms of the book that I'm reading, Arlene Davila's book.
What's that called?
And I'm having a brain fart with the title. It is Latinx artist, market, and politics by Arlene Davila. Yeah, get it. Support Latinx art writers and critics. But certainly, as we together try to formulate language for what Latinx art is, I find myself pulling in younger contemporary artists and thinkers, as well as indigenous contemporary artists and thinkers books. So I'm also right after Arlene Davila's book, I have Decolonizing Epistemologies it's a collection of work that just talks about how storytelling, how collection of information has happened and should happen moving forward from our communities and indigenous communities. So yeah, I'm thinking of, I like reading stuff that is informing an expanded way of thinking about these topics. So yeah, and I follow Arlene Davila on Twitter too. So I get the best of both worlds, her book and her thoughts. So that's what I'm reading. I'm sure Colony knows this book too, as a fellow art writer. Yeah.
Totally. Okay, this other question is something that, you know, we can touch upon real quick if you want. We could skip it, whatever. But she wanted to know our thoughts on this article that I sent you. It was a Politico, and a little snippet from it was, the numbers suggest that using Latinx is a violation of the political Hippocratic Oath, which is to first do no electoral harm, said Amandi, who was the poll taker in this. It says, whose firm advised Barack Obama's successful Hispanic outreach nationwide in his 2 presidential campaigns. Why are we using a word that is preferred by only 2%, but offends as many as 40% of those voters we want to win? So thoughts on that? I don't know if you had time to read the article. I did. Wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, the article was everything I had read before. So it wasn't anything that was screaming out, you know, something controversial. The funny thing about names in a U.S. context is they have never, number one, they have not been consistent. And number two, they have always been hated. So 40% of people hating Latinx is nothing new from when Latino came around in the 80s and when Hispanic was created in the early 70s. People hated it. We didn't have social media then to express our hatred. But I'll tell you, I guess, you know, there's that old movie, and Chicanos use this as a joke a lot, right? It's sort of like a call to arms, right? If someone says this, you're like, Chicano. The quote from that movie that I don't remember the title, but the character who's Mexican, he says, we don't need no stinking badges. Like, you know, like, I don't need a badge to tell me who I am, or to tell, like, you don't need to, I don't need no stinking badges. I think that attitude goes into any attempt by U.S. government, because that's where these, most of them, with the exception of Latinx, or institutions, right? There's a real resistance about calling us something that holds more than that person, right? Like other things. And so I have to put this into perspective. Hispanic was created by a group of Mexican elites that were working for out in DC, right? Who wanted to put front and center this demographic that was made up of wildly different communities, from Mexican to Mexican American to Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban, right? And they wanted one name to be able to navigate the US political system. And so, you know, it was an attempt to unify a political bloc. The other reason, or who was right behind, or maybe also in those conversations, were media companies like Telemundo, Univision. They had a big vested interest in combining all of these audiences so that they could create one market. That was Hispanic. But by the way, does not include Brazil, because Brazil doesn't speak Spanish. And, you know, some definitely the indigenous communities throughout Latin America and Mexico and Haiti, right, which is now part. It's Latina. it's Latin America and the Caribbean, right? So Haiti is part of that. So that's where Latino comes into play. Like 10 or 20 years later, nobody liked Latino, not for any gender, right? You're changing but because I'm not Latino, I'm Mexican, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm New Yorican, I'm Chicano, like, right? Like all of that.
Yeah.
Then this term Latinx comes around. It was created by people who identified as Latino, who were also identifying as LGBTQ, gender non-binary. And they advanced this term, right? Switching out the gender O and A to an X as a way to be more inclusive, right? Of folks who did not identify as Latino or Latina. That was it. I love the comments on Twitter, right? Where it'll be something completely different, like a topic like Latinx, a year recap, Latinx celebrities in in Hollywood. And then the comments are like, stop using Latinx. Like, it has nothing to do with the topic, everything to do with how people hate Latinx. And then a lot of the comments are there is a myth out there that Latinx was created by white people. It was not.
Yeah.
It was created by students in academia, Latino and Latinx students in academia, to be more inclusive. As we continue this conversation, expand our awareness around gender and gender labels. So it's just funny, like they will ignore the important issues, like housing, immigration, economic inequality. I say they, meaning us. And yet they will go in hard
on this
for the
name.
Latinx label.
Yeah.
How Obama engaged the Latino community in the US during his run for president came from his skills, experience, and history in grassroots organizing. It had nothing to do with what he called us. It had to do with he was knocking on doors.
Doing the work.
He was listening to stories. He was calling people by their name. He was getting specific. Latino communities felt we were heard by this president. And we definitely showed up at the polls for him, right? Mm-hmm. So I love how pundits and media, like, they want to crystallize some magic, right? The magic nugget that is the cause. And it's like, it's about people. It's about human contact. It's about someone who potentially could have a lot of power listening to the average day person, like literally physically listening to them, right? Being there at their home. So whatever political wants to imagine, that was the key to Obama's success. And I will add Bernie Sanders' success, because he did the same thing. And we came out in the primary for Bernie, boo-boo. Like, Latinos represented for Bernie. Yes.
Yeah, I will say, in these polls, who are you polling? Like, you know what I'm saying? You're not polling the people so it's,
And I will say that language evolves. Look, you know what? I'll put it this way, since we were on the East Coast topic earlier on, right? One of the things I love about East Coast and East Coast men, they got 3 names. They got their government name. They got their, whatever people started calling them when they were little, which is different from their government name.
Exactly.
And then they got their street name. I mean, why can't we just look at things like that, right? We have multiple ways of describing ourselves. And so it's just like get your government name and do what we got to do and represent, so that we're not forgotten in spaces of power when decisions that affect us are being made. Like, that's what it is. It's just putting on another coat, or putting on your work clothes, right? And then taking them off at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Ni modo, dude. Like there are such bigger issues than whether. I mean, I love the question because we need to address that.
Yeah, we need to have more
when people are commenting, I hate Latinx, you shouldn't use it. And it's like, okay.
Exactly.
Use whatever you want.
Yeah, use it, don't use it, fine.
But
exactly.
Vote.
But vote, yes.
Participate.
Be a part of the process.
Let your voice be heard. That's the point of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I love I need to get my street name. I need to get my 2 other names. I love that. I love that. And then you knew that dude had feelings for you when he gave you his government name.
When he gave you his real name. That's what happened with my now partner husband when he met, and he was like, oh, he wrote his name down, his real name and his number. And I was like, oh, he wrote his real name, his government name, his real name. Hilarious. Okay, the final. Gracias, Colony. Love her so much. She's going to be coming in the new year. And then the last one is a comment. It says, she's high on my list of badass people. She makes anything she touches better. Heart emoji. This is from Rafael Cardenas, photographer extraordinaire. He just had you on his podcast. And I was like, I hit him up and I said, listen, I don't know you, but we both know Evonne, our girl Evonne. So is there something you want to ask? Comment, da-da-da-da. And this is what he came up with. And I was very, very thankful. So you are loved.
Rafa, thank you. That means a lot to me, especially when it comes from an artist. I mean, besides Roy Choi, I stan artists, as you know. That makes me feel really good, because sometimes we all get into you get into the work and you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And it feels good. I can't front. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yay. Okay. Now, since you've been on before, the not so rapid fire questions, aka slow hell questions, already answered. So now we're going to the not so rapid fire questions, the aka slow as hell questions part 2. And these are specifically for you.
Okay.
NYC or LA?
NYC.
To code switch or not to code switch?
To code switch. Out of necessity, out of survival.
Out of survival. Please believe it. Favorite Ghostface Killer track of all time? You gotta see her face. You gotta see her face. I knew it. I was like, I gotta get it with this one.
Okay.
You can only pick one
track, because look, everything Ghost spits on Raekwon's Built for Cuban Links is fire. I mean, that's the Capricorn Taurus magic they make together. But I would say it's got to be Cherchez La Ghost. It's got to be Cherchez La Ghost. There's others, but like that, you put that on at a party.
It's on. It's on.
Forget about it.
It's sweat time.
And I am still aspiring. I haven't found the right one, but I too want to adopt a uniform of a bathrobe and wear that like everywhere I go with the Dookie gold chain, right? Like I would like to be known for that in the later half of my years.
Yes. Oh, there goes Evonne. You know she was wearing that robe. She was wearing the fuck out of that robe. Final question. New moon or full moon?
Full moon.
Okay.
If I had I guess my street name would be Intensidad, because I love it intensely. It's just, to see the full moon in all of its beauty and all of the intense vibes and energies that are, the moon, blame it on the moon kind of stuff. Full moon every day, all day.
Love it. And that wraps up our part 2 questions that are specifically made for you.
I loved.
Evonne, muchísimas gracias for taking the time and having this convo with me. I loved learning more about you. I can't wait for it to be a different type set of circumstances because I need to see you more often in person. I need to break bread. Maybe we go to Best Friends to see
Maybe
your
we
mug.
do road trip.
What? Oh, excuse.
And fun is saying, like, when are we going? So, like, girls road trip.
Boom,
That's
boom,
what's up.
amazing. And we also have to make sure that we coordinate it so that it's when Roy's there too. Like it has to be, you know what I'm saying? Like the whole shebang, because I need to witness this standing in person.
Witness the awkward girl, like the awkward girl, like, oh my gosh. Like I stand for the weirdest not the weirdest, but I don't stand for celebrities, right? Like I stand for thinkers, culinary artists, poets and writers. Like those people I get awkward and like nervous around. But so that will be
change
happening.
Agents, people that make change, that create change and
add
to community, make spaces. Like, those are the ones. Those are the ones.
I also love how he put, I forget his name, but the guy who's on his show, Chef. I love how he always checks him.
Yeah.
Like, don't get too, like, slow it down. I'm the chef here. Like, ooh, yes. Do that. Check it. I love it. That'll be fun. I can't wait for that road trip.
That'll be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me back. It was hella fun for me.
And now, introducing
the Supernatural Bear Corner. Supernatural Bear. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Supernatural Bear Corner. For today, I know it's a little bit late, but we are talking about one of my mama's friends, and I'm here to talk about some Dia de los Muertos stuff. Now, if you don't know what Dia de los Muertos is, and you are thinking that it is the Halloween of Mexico, you are incorrect, and that is very offensive. Dia de los Muertos is a day where we celebrate those who are sadly no longer with us. And not in a sad way, more like in a happy way. Instead of mourning their loss, more like remembering the great times we had with them. And an important thing about Dia de los Muertos is, make sure you had the Dia de los Muertos is altars. And altars are like little things that are, it's hard to describe, but if I had to describe them, they would be like, they would have pictures of the lost ones and some of their favorite pictures of some of their favorite foods and things and people and stuff like that. And you would put them all together in one place so that way they can come and their spirits can visit you. Also, little kids, if you are listening to this, unfortunately, they will not appear physically. So if your little hamster died, I'm sorry, you won't be able to physically see him ever again. But you'll be able to see him mentally. So, hey, it's something, okay? It's something. But Dia de los Muertos is important to Latinx?
Yeah, you can say
that. Latinx culture, and we do it every year. This is our first year doing an altar, and yeah. My mom's friend, Evonne, Miss Evonne, she made an amazing presentation about Dia de los Muertos, which I recommend you go check out. My mom will put the link to it in the show notes below, like right after you finish listening to this, and yeah. But this has been the SMB signing off. Goodbye, everyone.
Shooby Doos. Yeah.
episode 57. That was episode 57 of Word to Your Mama. How great was she? Yes. Evonne Gallardo, good timers, like I said, kindred spirits. And I'm going to put this out there again into the universe. I'm trying to manifest that whether I go or not, that Evonne makes it to her beautiful mug on the wall of Roy Choi's best friend in Las Vegas, and that the stars and the moons and the suns align, and that Roy Choi will be there. I just want to witness, just knowing that it went down, but I definitely want to witness her meeting one of her crushes. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that would be amazing. So manifest. This is, let's see, I think there's only 2 more episodes that will be new that are coming out for 2021. Thank you so much for your support. Next week, we have the final relatives of the year. It's also the week of Naisha's birthday. She's a Christmas baby. And then the last episode, the final episode of 2021 will be just, a short one of the Supernatural Bear and I. It's gift giving season, so why not give the gift of some enamel pens, some tea towels that Evonne so graciously mentioned that she loves and supports. Go visit our store. That's right. We'll have a link to that. Perfect gifts. You still have enough time, depending on where you are in the world, especially in the country, to get them mailed out in time for the holidays. Okay. Or say you've been buying a grip of gifts for your family and friends. Why not treat yourself and buy yourself something. And so it can get, can arrive to you before the year is over or within the new year, the beginning. So make that happen. Also, if you want to support, the best way to support this podcast is to leave a review. These are free ways to support. Leave a review and spread it and tell your folks and tell your peeps and tell your friends. I appreciate that, but we need to get this out because we need more people to listen to this so we can share the voices, these diverse voices, far and wide. And yeah, I think that's it for this episode. Appreciate it. And as always, we reap. Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritzy P. Intro beat produced by Nico Beats. If you want to know anything about Word to Your Mama, including Media Kit, go to wordtoyourmama.com. And as always, Word to Your Mama is brought to you by ritzyperiwinkle.com.